welcome to this training on the Marketing Center powered by Mark. We're going to cover a lot of information in this training, but I want to start by saying, please don't feel overwhelmed. There's nothing you can do that's going to break the platform as you dive into it. And in fact, I would encourage you to explore the platform and see just how easily you can customize content and get it out to those folks who need to see it. Before we begin, let's cover a couple of quick slides before diving into the platform. Here's some important reminders. You can review this slide at your own time, but let's continue on. Today, we'll talk about what the Marketing Center is, how to navigate the platform, how to use templates and create your own documents or projects, some additional helpful resources, and any frequently asked questions towards the end. The key thing to remember about the Marketing Center, its goal is to help you move faster and create better. You're going to have access to professional grade on-brand templates you'll be able to make your own copies of, customize or personalize to the extent allowed, and then share those out in a variety of ways to your customers and those folks who need to see it. You'll have access to brand logos, colors, and fonts, property listings shared, and the ability to create a variety of content. With that, let's go ahead and dive into the platform. You'll access the Marketing Center via your desktop tile, and you should land on a screen that looks very much like this. Before we do too much more navigation on the platform, I do want to clarify a couple of key terminology issues we'll use throughout the training today. The first is, whenever I say the word team for the purposes of today's training, that's everyone with shared access to the Marketing Center. So if I say that you're sharing with the team or the team will see this, that's everyone with access to this particular account. You'll be joining as an individual user. So when we talk about users, that's base access to the platform, the ability to make copies of templates, customize or personalize those, and then share them out with the folks who need to see them. Some users are promoted up to admin roles, and we'll use the term either admins or your marketing and design team when we talk about admins and those admin settings and controls in the platform. Finally, the other two really important key terms we'll use frequently throughout the training are templates, which are the pre-designed on-brand professional level marketing collateral you'll have access to when you enter the Marketing Center, and then projects or documents. We'll use projects and documents interchangeably. Those reflect your personal copies of any templates you have access to, and those are things you'll be able to customize and personalize and share out with your customers. With that, let's go ahead and dive into the homepage. When you first log in, as I said before, your screen will look very similar to this. You most likely won't see any of these thumbnails across the center row, and the reason for that is these reflect recent projects you've worked on. If you haven't worked on any projects yet, you won't have any recent projects. This row will populate over time as you create and make copies of projects, and know that it is unique to you as a user. No other user will see your row of recent projects, nor will you see anyone else's. This is a useful tool to quickly jump back into projects you'd like to begin working on or customizing again. Just to the right of that, we see the starred option. And if we click on that, we see that we have the option to mark specific templates as starred or favorite. This is just a quick shortcut to jump back into templates that you use frequently instead of browsing the template library. Again, the starred row is unique and specific to you as a user. No one else will ever see what you've marked as a starred or favorited template. To the right of that, we have the popular tab. And before we click on it, a quick note about the popular tab. While the other two are unique and specific to you as a user, the popular tab reflects the entire team. If we click on that, we'll see a row of templates that are most frequently used by the entire team. Now, there are a couple of important caveats to that note. When we say the most popular across the team, it is limited by access. Your marketing and design team is able to specifically share certain templates, either based on your office, location, or needs. And so if you don't have access to a template, you'll never see it in this row, no matter how popular it may be. And you may see templates here that other folks don't because you have specific access. But again, the popular tab will generally reflect which templates are being used most frequently across your entire team. So if you're ever unsure what are the popular templates or the frequently used ones, you can come here to look at that. Now, before we jump into navigation, there are two more important icons I want to show you here on the homepage. If we go to the upper right corner, we see a question mark with a small circle around it. This is a very useful tool. If we click it, it creates a drop-down that links us directly to a variety of helpful resources. We can look at updated features, Jump directly to the Help Center or Resource Library, and we'll talk more about that in just a moment. Watch a variety of training videos or tutorials, jump into courses, or even track upcoming webinars for additional trainings in the platform. To the right of that, we see this bell or alert icon, and a quick note about that before we explore it. Your access to the Marketing Center will always be tied directly to an email, and whenever the system wants to communicate information with you, whether a document's been shared or approved, it'll send an alert to that email, but you'll also find alerts here under the bell icon, where you can see when something's been shared, someone has left you a comment, or otherwise. Now, let's talk about navigating the platform. You're going to navigate the platform in one of two ways. The first is using this left-hand navigation bar, and we'll talk about each of the different tabs there in just a moment. The second is via new tabs that will populate in your browser. Throughout the training today, I'll try to notify whenever we're looking at the navigation bar or clicking on a new tab open in our browser. So let's start with the navigation bar, but before we do, note the 3 small dash marks in the upper left-hand corner. As you work throughout the platform and click on different links in the navigation bar, it may collapse or close. Just know that you can re-expand it or collapse it with those 3 dash marks. This is a super useful tip because until you're very familiar with the platform, it can be hard to navigate just via the icons. We're currently on the homepage. Again, that's where you'll find Recent, Start, and Popular. Beneath that is the My Projects tab. We won't open it just yet. We'll circle back during the demo portion of the training. But think of My Projects as your private folder where anything you create or make copies of is going to live. My Projects is unique and specific to you as a user. No one else will ever have access to your My Projects folder, and you'll be able to sort and organize that as you see fit. Beneath that, we have My Images, and we'll go ahead and click on that now. Under My Images, you're able to use the Add button to add any additional images you'd like to have to customize the content you're working on in the platform. We can add single images from our device or entire folders of images if need be. While that's certainly useful, and again, your images are specific and unique to you as a user, just beneath that is probably the more useful function, which is the Shared With Me button. If we click on that, we'll see folders of images and collections of icons or logos that have been shared with us by the marketing and design team. Now, you won't have any ability to edit or make changes to these folders, but you can use the content within to customize or personalize the projects you're working on. Again, I should point out, and I'll try to reiterate this throughout the training, that your marketing and design team has the ability to selectively share content. So while in this training today, you may see images or logos that aren't specific to you, once you log in the platform, you should only see that content you need access to. Beneath My Images, we see the Templates tab, and we won't click on it just yet. We'll circle back to that again during the demo portion. But templates are where you're going to find all of that pre-designed, on-brand, professional-grade marketing collateral the design and marketing team is built out for you. Again, that content can be shared selectively. So in the training today, you may see some templates that either you don't have access to, or you may see ones I don't have access to. Beneath that, we see the tab for Brand Assets. This is where you can view and review all of the brand assets that have been shared with you. You can see all of the brand colors that have been loaded. There aren't going to be any brand images. Instead, you'll find those under Shared With Me. That's the logos and icons that we saw earlier. We can review any of the brand fonts that have been loaded, and you'll have access to any font loaded as a brand font, as well as see the pre-designed text styles or text boxes we can add to our projects. Now, I'm currently impersonating an admin level account, so I see some additional features you won't have. You won't see the ability to edit or change smart fields, adjust settings, or to customize mark. I should also note that you won't have any ability to edit or make changes to the brand assets. Data automation is another admin level feature. We won't dive into that just now, but know that you won't have access to that generally in the platform. Print portal is only going to come into play if you have a print integration with us or an admin level need to review that. And we'll talk about exporting and how printing works when we get to the demo. You'll never see the restore admin function. That's a feature of me on the Mark side impersonating an account. I'm going to pause for just a moment here on the Help Center tab. I know we're throwing a lot of information at you, and if all of it seems to be coming by too quickly, I want to pause and draw your attention to this next tab. The Help Center is perhaps the most useful tab I'll show you in today's training. If we click on it, it's going to open a new tab in our browser directly to the Help Center or Resource Library for Mark. Here you can search for any tool, feature, or function you'd like to know how to use, or search for other ideas to find out if Mark is able to do that particular act. If we scroll down instead of using the search bar, we can once again link directly to training videos, courses, and upcoming events. Beneath the Help Center is your personal login information. You should see the email you used to access the platform, and you could see your own personal account settings. You won't see admin settings. Now, I know we've covered a lot already. We're now going to jump into the demo portion of the training. We're going to show you how you most likely will make use of it on your first time accessing, as well as refresh how you might use it on return visits. Your first time logging in, again, you'll land here on the home page and likely won't see any of the thumbnails we have here today. Instead, your first trip will be going to the Templates tab. Here, we'll see all of the brand templates that have been designed and shared with us and have our ability to access those. Now, there's a lot to cover on this page, so we'll go through each of it step by step. First, I'm going to use the 3 dash marks in the upper left to collapse that window so we have a bigger view. We've landed under Brand Templates, where we see all of the templates that we have access to. Note they're broken into various categories. For example, we are currently looking at the featured templates. These are templates our design or marketing team has marked as featured, either for being new to the platform, specific to an upcoming use case, or just being frequently used. We can use the mouse wheel to scroll down, and we'll see once again that same popular row. Again, these are the templates that are being used most frequently across the team that you as an individual user have access to. For example, if for some reason you didn't have access to this celebration template, you wouldn't see it here, even though it's in the current popular row. Finally, beneath that, we see all of the other templates that we have access to. We can use the mouse wheel to scroll through all of these and review the templates that are available, but over time, that can be pretty tedious. Instead, I recommend you make use of the categories and filters we see over here on the left-hand side. We can search by type, what category, which campaign, doc format, and more. Note that Mark and the Marketing Center is a living software, meaning over time you may see new categories and new filters added, as well as new templates or updates to existing templates. For now, though, if we wanted to see just banner templates, we can check that box, and immediately it narrows down to the 4 templates that match the banner guideline. If we wanted to see all the flyers available, we could check that as well and see the 22 flyers available. Note, if we ever see a category or filter with no numbers behind it, it means that either 1, there are no templates currently in the platform that match that filter, or 2, you don't have access to any of the templates that match that current filter. Instead of using the categories and filters here on the left, we can also search templates across the top bar and search for any specific template that we'd like to share. As we start typing in text, it's going to immediately filter down to just the templates that match the characters we put in, and we can make use of those there. Now, once you've browsed the template to find the one you're looking for, we can left-click on it to get a larger preview of that template, as well as any additional pages that have been added to it. We can click on each page to get a preview of it, and use our mouse wheel to scroll through the various pages. If this looks like the appropriate template for us, we can click Use Template. When we do that, a couple of things are happening. First, the platform is letting us know it's going to save a private copy of that template based on the same name of the template. We can edit and change this as we see fit. In this case, I'm going to name it Test and put my first name. This way I can find it later very easily. Over time, I may build up dozens or even hundreds of projects or copies of templates, so a naming convention that makes sense to me will be very important. It's also letting me know it's going to save that copy under My Projects. As soon as I hit Create Document, it's immediately going to open up the editor to my private copy of this, where I can start to personalize or customize it. I'm going to let that window open, and then we're going to step back to the Projects or the Home tab. We'll come back to this tab in just a moment for a full tour of the editor, as well as demonstration of just how easily and quickly you can personalize the content you have access to in the Marketing Center. We're going to click back on the tab we just left, and I want to draw your attention to the bottom right, where we see that Test Patrick has been saved under My Projects. We'll re-expand that navigation bar and go to the My Projects tab now. Now we click on My Projects and we'll see any of the previous projects or documents we've created. And now's a good time to point out that the Marketing Center is a cloud-based software. So if you don't see within a few moments a project you created, you can always go ahead and refresh your screen or refresh the tab and let it reload. Here we see the Test Patrick project we created, as well as some other projects that have been created in the past. Now, as I mentioned earlier, over time, you may build up dozens or even hundreds of projects. So being able to organize and sort those is going to be very important. Of course, you can use specific naming conventions to make that easier. But in addition to that, we can right-click in any empty space and choose to create a new folder. We could name that folder anything that we like. And we'll see it populate within a few moments here in the Projects tab, as well as on the navigation bar here on the left-hand side. Once it does, we can drag and drop any projects we've created into those folders, even open it and create subfolders within to better sort and organize the projects we have access to. If we mouse over any project, we see a variety of options, including the ability to open it, share it, and more. For just a moment, I'm going to click on the More tab, so we can see that we can open a project from our project folder, which is going to jump straight into that editor. We can choose to rename it, duplicate it, cut, copy, delete, show the details, share, and more. For now, I want to talk a little bit about your storage in the Marketing Center. As a user, you have unlimited storage for projects, and I tell you that because if we go to a project and choose to delete it, we're not going to get any kind of warning or caution that it'll be deleted. Instead, after just a few moments, it'll vanish from our project folder and land here in trash. We can recover it for up to 7 days out of our trash, after which it'll be deleted automatically and is irretrievable. Now, I mentioned in the beginning of the training, one of the most important things is there's nothing you're going to break here in the Marketing Center. However, there are 2 small hiccups you can make that might make your life a little bit harder, and I want to draw your attention to those when they come up. The first of which is this. If you customize a detailed multi-page project and then accidentally delete it, that can be a bit of a headache to start over. If it's a single page, simple fix, you can just go to templates and grab a new copy. Otherwise, you'd have to start all over and customize from the beginning. As I noted, we can go to trash and restore and bring it right back to our project tab for up to 7 days. After that, it's gone. So instead, I would advise you to drag and drop into the training folder or any other folder you create to help sort and organize your projects. Now, having said that, we're going to leave this tab and go back to the still open editor tab in our browser to tour the editor. Remember, however, we could open from here to jump to the editor as well. Now, before we take a tour of the editor, I'm going to point out one of the most important features that you'll see when using the Marketing Center. If we look at this little padlock icon in the upper right, that's an ability for admins to add locks on certain content to prevent us from going off brand or breaking a template that's been designed for us. If we go over to View and choose to Show Locking Restrictions, we'll see all of the locks that are in place on any collateral we're working with. If we see a yellow lock, that lets us know that some, but not all of the controls within that particular asset have been locked. In the case of this text box, we can see it says the style, position, and size has been locked. That means we have no ability to edit the style of the text there, but we can change the content of the text. We can't move or adjust the size of that text box, but we can still edit what's within. If we mouse over the image, we see again the style, position, and size has been locked. We can swap out the image that's present, but we can't rearrange it on the page or resize it. If we see a red lock, that lets us know that every aspect of that particular asset has been locked. We have no ability to change that. Now we can go to View and turn off those locking restrictions. And if we click in the text box, we'll see that lock reappears as well. I point out the locks early on in this tour because as we walk through the editor, there may be certain things that I show you that you don't have access to on any given template or project that you're working on. With that, let's begin our tour of the editor. It's easiest to think of the editor as divided into 3 separate sections: the left-hand side, the top, and the right-hand side. Let's talk through each of those now. The left-hand side of the editor is your ability to add content to any project you're working on. It's currently open to the Add Pages option, where we can hit New to add a blank page, or we can scroll all the way to the bottom and see the plus button to add a blank page there as well. If we add that blank page, it'll always match the existing size of the other pages, and we can start to personalize or customize that. I should note that your marketing and design team has the ability to prevent adding additional pages to any content or deleting pages. Beneath that, we see our ability to add text. These are those text boxes I pointed out under brand assets, where you can drag and drop a new text box onto a page to be able to customize and personalize that. Note again, your marketing design team has the ability to prevent adding pages or adding content to certain pages. As we see here, I can't drag a new text box onto this page. It lets me know that's been locked. Beneath the ability to add text, we see shapes, and they work just the same. We can drag and drop a shape, fill it with an image or color, or convert it to a text box. And again, access to those can be locked. Beneath that, we see our ability to add images. And if we click on that, it'll default to My Images. But we can also use the caret dropdown to go to Shared with Me to have access to all of those folders, logos, and images that have been shared specifically to us as a user. Beneath that, we see the Stock Images tab. If we click on that, we can use either Icon Finder or Unsplash to search for professional-grade, copyright-free images we can make use of to customize our content. We can use the search bar and immediately pull up a variety of, again, professional photographs that are copyright-free to use. Beneath that, we see the tables option where we can draw and drag the number of columns and rows we need to add a table to the project we're working on. We see our property listings beneath that, and we'll talk more about how those work in just a bit. We see as well as listing updates and other data. We won't dive into those now, but we will come back to property listings again in just a bit to show you how those work. Beneath that, we see the Smart Fields option. Smart Fields are pre-designed fields that will look for your specific user information and try to populate it for you. For example, if I were logged into my own personal account and pulled the first name smart field over where it was added to a template, it would automatically populate with Patrick, which is my first name. You don't ever have to worry about missing smart fields. If there's one you don't have, you'll see a red box populate across the top that says you're missing a smart field. It'll give you the name and ask you to populate it. Beneath that, we have our advanced features under the More tab. We won't dive into most of these today, but know that you can use a variety of buttons and links, videos, and scrolling text fields to really customize the content you're working on. That concludes the left-hand side. Again, that's the opportunity to add content to a project we're working on. Across the top is your ability to edit or customize the text. Now note, if I click on an existing text box, some of that may ghost or gray out. That means that particular ability has been locked by the marketing or design team. You should be familiar with most of the icons you see here. The ability to bold, italicize, underline, change the font weight or size, adjust alignment, add bullet points, and so on. Again, some of this may or may not be locked as you customize the content you're working on. And if it is, it'll have that grayed over or ghosted out look. Finally, on the right-hand side is our ability to get really granular with the assets that we're working with. I'm going to scroll back towards the top, and note if I click in a text box, it says text, shape, and layout. Some of these may be locked, and if not, I can make adjustments. But I would adjust the text style here, the shape of the text box, or the layout where I can bring it to the front, back, rotate it, or otherwise. If I click on an image, we see that changes from text and shape and layout to just image and layout. Now, in most cases, you won't have to use this right-hand side very much, except when editing and adjusting images, and we'll talk about that in just one moment. With that, that concludes the tour of the editor. Let's dive in to see just how easily we can customize the content that we're working on. If we double-click in any text box, if we're allowed to make edits, we'll see the cursor go live and the text box will outline in green. We can now type over or through, deleting or overwriting anything that we'd like to change. And I should draw your attention as I make that change to the upper center under the saved icon. If I start typing, within just a few seconds, it says saving and then saved. Again, the Marketing Center is a cloud-based software. It will automatically save or update within just a few moments of making changes. If I work really quickly and try to make a change and close before it has a chance to save, it'll let me know that it hasn't saved yet. There's no need for you to hit a save or save button. It's automatically going to save and be ready for the next time you return. Since we're already looking here at the save button, let's look just to the left at the undo and redo arrows. With these, we can undo any changes we recently made or bring them back. I should note that undo and redo only work in the current instance you're working in. If I were to leave this project and come back later, there would be nothing to undo or redo. Instead, I would go to File and go to Revision History. Here, I can see a list of any changes I made and when I made them to the project. I can restore it back to that version, or even create a new instance of it that has those previous changes in it and not my most recent. Again, to change any text that we have access to, we can double click in the text box, the cursor will go live, and we can copy over, paste, erase, or type through any of the text that's there. Swapping out images is just as easy. We can double click on any image to immediately bring up our image library, where we can either upload images, review the images we've loaded, or go to that Shared With Me tab and look for any images that are appropriate. In this case, we'll swap out the image with this one. So we'll left click and then choose to insert it. Note it immediately fits the size and placement of the previous image, and that's all I need to do. However, if this image was slightly out of position or I needed to make some adjustments, this is one of those few times you would go to that right-hand side and we would click the caret for image, and we'll see we have the ability to crop and mask. I can click that and I'm working in a new layer where I can resize, drag around and adjust to ensure this image best fits my need, hitting enter and converting it to that. Again, we can crop and mask, we can adjust the image scale, though most often the Marketing Center will adjust the image scale to best fit the placement you had previously. We can work our way using the mouse wheel, scrolling through each page available to us to edit and customize any of the content. If it hasn't been prevented, we can also decide we don't need the extra pages, so we can click and choose to delete it, or we can shift click to delete multiple pages at once. And this way we can work with just the pages we need if there are multiple versions of a particular layout. Now, before we talk about collaborating and exporting your project, I want to pause and show you the most useful tool here in the editor. Much as I did on the homepage, if all of this feels like it's rushing by too quickly, again, I want to take a moment to show you the most useful tool you'll have access to here in the editor. If we draw our attention to the upper right corner, we'll see a small set of binoculars next to the word Feature Find. If we click on that, it'll bring a search bar where we can search for any tool, feature, or function we'd like to use in the platform. In this case, let's say we wanted to learn more about using images. We type the word image, and immediately we see an animated arrow trying to show us where in the editor we can find tools relating to image. If we mouse down from option to option, that arrow will also move, trying to help us find where in the platform that particular tool, feature, or function lives. If we get down to the question marks, it's not going to show us where in the editor that tool lives. Instead, it'll open up a new tab in our browser directly to that resource library or help center to talk about all the different tools related to that particular search criteria. Again, it opens up a new tab, so I'll close out of that now and go right back to the editor. So whether you're brand new in the platform or have experience, the Feature Find is an invaluable tool to help you locate tools you're not that familiar with or haven't used in a while. So we've looked at how quickly we can customize content, how we can swap out text, add new images. Now let's talk about how we can work collaboratively, either with other members of our team or within the same organization. If we look just to the right of the lock button, we'll see a little person with a plus, and that's the Collaborate option. Here we can add additional users to access to our project. Now I should clarify, really importantly, that access is restricted to just other users within the Marketing Center. I can decide what level of access I'd like to give them: edit and share, edit, comment, and view. Edit meaning they can open my personal or private copy and make changes. We can work collaboratively on it. Share meaning they can share with other members of this team. Comment means they can just leave me a message or a note, providing feedback, granting their approval, whatever else that may be. And view is truly just a preview version of the final product that they can look over. I can start to type the name or email of any user I want to share with and see a list of anyone that matches that criteria pop up. Now, I should note that your marketing design team has the ability to limit who you can share with, whether a specific location, office, or otherwise. Once I share with them, I'll have the option to send them a custom email message, either asking for their feedback or thoughts, and hit the share button. I don't want to share with anyone today by accidentally sharing that button, but we'll talk more about what it looks like once we do. I'd see their name listed down here under collaborators, what level of sharing I granted, and I could adjust that on the fly from edit and share to just edit, or even just comment. And then an X where I could actually remove their access to my project for any future needs. If someone has access to my project and we were both logged in at the same time, I would see an icon here that lets me know they're in, and we could see each other's changes in real time. Additionally, they could use the chat function down here in the bottom right to chat back and forth while we worked on this project, providing feedback, giving additional information. What's more useful and more likely the case, we won't be in at the same time, and instead I can right-click on any asset, image, text box, shape, or otherwise, and choose to add a comment. It's going to prompt me to use the @ symbol followed by their name or email, in which case, again, I'll see a list of anyone that I can share to. They'll get an alert from the system letting them know they have a comment waiting, and I can leave them any message I'd like and comment that. It'll create this little quotation box where I can click on it or they can click on it to see any messages that have been left. It's important to note these will never show up anywhere but here in the editor for the Marketing Center. They won't show up in a final export at all. We can also resolve those if we don't want to see them here either. But in this way, we have a record of our communication and can work collaboratively to customize the content we're working on. Now let's talk about our export options. Then we'll open up another template to talk about how you can use your listing information to populate a variety of info really, really quickly. Just to the right of the Collaborate button, we see a variety of other buttons, and we'll talk through each of these in turn. The first is the Preview button. If we click the Preview button, we're going to get a web page-based view of what the final version would look like. We'll be able to click through each of the pages available to us, and note the comments don't show up here at all. We only see what the final version would look like. If you share at the preview only or view only version with someone, this is what their screen will look like with no ability to edit or make any changes. If we're happy after the preview version with what we've done, we can next go to the download icon. Here we see the options to download as a PDF, PNG, JPEG, GIF, or MP4. Most likely, if you're sending to a local printer or ordering prints or attaching to an email, you'll be downloading as a PDF. We can select which page or page ranges, the resolution. We can even apply a color profile if we need to send to a local printer, show crop or bleed marks, and what level of PDF. Once we download it, it'll save to our device then, and we have a copy of that PDF to send out however we'd like. Next to the download option, we see the share with the paper airplane on it, and if we click on that, we see that we can post directly to social media, publish to the web, embed in an email, or on a website. Posting to social media is going to post a thumbnail version that will open up and show just what the preview did. They'll be able to click through it and see what's available there. Publishing to the web will allow you to publish your project to the web and share that URL out with anyone that needs to see it. These are advanced features we won't dive into a lot today, but just know that you can do quite a bit with web published content. You can also generate HTML code to embed in an email or onto a website. Finally, we can click the Order Prints button. Here we'll be able to choose the size appropriate and order prints for any of the content that we want. In this case, this is a social media post, so we don't see an appropriate size, but if there was, we would select it, how many copies we need, and have those prints ordered. We're going to close this tab and go back to the Home or Projects tab, talk a little bit about how to share from the Projects tab, and then finally open up another template to show you how the listing information works. So again, we're on the My Projects tab where we see all the projects we've created. From here, we also can share with all the same options we saw before. 4 different levels of sharing. We would see the names of anyone we shared with, at what level, and be able to remove their access from here as well. Remember, we can create these folders and drag and drop those as needed as well. Now we're going to jump back into templates, find a template with some listing information, and then we'll circle back here to talk about a recap of all the things we've covered today. So we'll go to templates, and again, we can scroll through all the templates available to us. We can use the search information to search for a specific name. And once we find a template, we can left click on it and see all of the information within. If we like what's available, we can click Use Template. Again, it's going to prompt us to either leave the name the same as the template or name it something that we can find again later. As soon as I hit Create Document, it's opening me into that editor view where I can start to make those changes to the project I'm working on. While that loads, I want to remind you again, there's nothing as a user you're going to do to break anything in the platform. I tell you that so you'll feel empowered to dive in once you have access and explore just how easily you can customize this content. Now, as we scroll down this particular project, I'm going to use the zoom buttons in the bottom right to zoom in, and we see some gray brackets around this information. That lets us know that this information is a type of smart field, but it's tied directly to our property listing information. I'm going to go to that left-hand side and scroll down to property listing. Well, I'll see all the properties I have access to. If I click on a property, I see the option to apply to document. When I do that, it's automatically going to apply any images and fill in any of those empty spaces as needed to match the listing. I can also go to images and see all the images associated with them and drag and drop to swap those out as needed. So let's do that again. We're going to go back to our listing. We'll find a listing that's appropriate and we will apply it to the document. Because we're applying to document, no, it goes to every page, whereas instead we could select an individual text box or option and it would apply it just to that shape. And you see the text box changes there. And this way you can quickly populate information that you need to be able to have from your listings directly into a project you have. We can then click on images again and have access to all the images associated with that listing and drag and drop or double click to swap those out. If we ever need to make changes, I'm going to zoom back in again to a text box that is populating from the listing. If we click on it, note we see this small T with stars around it. That gives us the option to swap this over to regular text, and we can double click and change that if need be. If you ever see a plus button underneath your box in a red outline, that lets us know that there's more text than will fit in this text box. In this case, the text is the size and position's been locked, so we may need to make some adjustments to make this fit. And then we were able to quickly adjust that and we could space that out a bit. So there you can see how quickly and easily you can use your listing information to populate an entire project, page after page if need be, for all the information that's appropriate. We can collaborate with others and share and give them access to either our personal project or ask them to collaborate on it. We can preview, download, share to the web or social media, or order prints. I want to remind you that I know we've covered a ton of information at a relatively quick pace. So a final reminder that you're not going to break anything by getting into the platform and experimenting with just how easily you can customize content. And I'm going to share with you now, before we do our recap, the second small headache or hiccup you could give yourself. And that's the only thing that you could do that would cause you a headache here in the platform. If we go to projects and we were to share our project with someone, if we unintentionally shared with either a group of users or another individual user at a level we didn't want, we may need to review that and change that on the fly. So if I were to start typing a name and add anyone from our platform and share with them, we'd see that I've shared at the edit and share level, and perhaps I want to adjust that just to edit. I can use the drop down, or if I didn't mean them to have access at all, I can click that, entirely removing their access to my project. That concludes our training. I'll go through a brief recap. I hope you found this very informative and you feel excited to jump into the Marketing Center and start creating. Remember, when you log in via your desk tile, you'll land here on the home page. Your first time in, you may not have any thumbnails here. Those will populate over time. You then use the left-hand navigation bar to navigate everywhere in the platform you'd like to go, storing all of your personal copies under projects, and reviewing any templates you have access to under the Templates tab. Within the editor, you'll use the left-hand side to add content to a project you're working on, the top to customize any text that you're allowed to, and the right-hand side to get really granular with any asset, most likely used to crop and mask an image that doesn't quite fit. You'll use the Help Center as the most useful tab here on the home page. And finally, the Feature Find in the editor as the most useful tool there as well. I want to thank you for your time today. Hopefully you found this informative, and I hope you enjoy creating in the Marketing Center.